嗨，大家好，这里是电波的湖大波湖。在今天早些时候，微软模拟飞行官方在 Twitch 上进行了一期 QA 直播。这次节目呢，大波湖也有全程的转播，尽可能的进行实时的大意翻译。本期视频就是这次转播的全程。有关本次直播上公布的所有的新消息，大波湖会在未来几天内做一期总结的视频。好了，那么接下来就是本期 QA 直播的全程。正式开始。声音打开。这声音感觉有点怪呀，这音乐就已经不在调上了。官方已经预告了今天的直播，基本上就是说年度版的事儿。年度版是那个昨天公开的。那简单先说一下，那个看过我那视频的朋友们应该都知道了，给没看过的朋友说一下。简单来说，年度版就是一个大号的免费更新。这可以说是现在的游戏的一个比较通行的做法吧，就是每隔一段时间把游戏的各种 DLC 什么的都包在一起，然后重新包装一次，重新包装一份，然后接着卖。老玩家呢就相当于更新一下就行，通常是免费的。然后这次模拟飞行年度版就是免费的。然后新玩家呢，相当于就是通过这种方式，他又带一波市场宣传，就这么个意思。然后目前知道的有这么多更新，主要最大的一个更新是这个 F18 这个，本来大家都以为会随壮志凌云一块儿到明年去，然后现在阿索宝直接说他直接拿出来给大家放，而且是免费的。剩下的就是一个小型的世界更新吧，一大堆机场，一大堆城市。这边最关键的是 PC 版的 DirectX 12，这个很关键，具体能有什么效果，到时候就看吧。其他的目前知道的就这么多，不知道今天还会不会公布什么新消息。然后等着官方直播开始吧。现在，嘿，时间真好。
This stream is cleared for takeoff. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's tuned in for this developer Q&A. It's nice to see so many familiar faces and a lot of new ones too, so glad you can join us. We do have a new face that you can probably see, so let's go ahead and do some introductions. I am Jane, I'm the Senior Community Manager for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And below me, of course, we have Jorg Newman. Jorg, how are you?
Hi, y'all. Great to be back.
Yes, and next to Jorg, we have Seb. How are you, Seb?
Hello, I'm fine.
Good. And finally, we have a new face, David. David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about who you are, since it's your first time with us on this stream.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Deden. I'm Creative Director at Asobo Studio. Super happy to present you today a little bit of the behind the scene of what we did with Reno Air Races.
Glad to have you. Yes, so this stream is going to be a little different. We're going to break up the Q&A sections a few ways.
右边的这位
Game of the
是
Year edition that we announced
新来的，
yesterday.
不能说新来的，是直播上第一次见
More
到。
depth into that, and some other surprises. And then get into our final Q&A.
直播的声音我稍微降一降，
So
感觉有点大。
for Reno and Game of the Year. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch screens here to talk, Jorg, if you want to talk
现在各位觉得声音怎么
game
样？
of the year and what's happening with it.
Hi everybody, great to see you again. I don't know if you saw, but yesterday we had a pretty big day. We released Sim Update 6 and it warmed our heart to see all the positive feedback, and we're very happy that you all are enjoying it. I just want to do a shout out to all the people who helped us during the flighting.
我这边声音得降一下，太大
There were
了
a。few thousand of you, so that was great. And as we said before, we're going to expand those types of things next year. So we're going to have longer flighting periods, and I think we're just going to have a much better process going forward for sim updates, and that have you guys participate. Then we shared some good news yesterday. We announced the ship date or the release date for Reno Air Races on November 18th. And as David just said, he's going to go into quite a bit of detail today. So if you're curious about that, you're going to get a first glance of how this is all really going to come together. And then we also had what hopefully was a delightful surprise. We announced the Game of the Year edition for Flight Sim. And yeah, in some ways, it's a celebration for all the positive feedback we've gotten from you all, from core simmers, from newcomers, from the press, and we won a bunch of Game of the Year awards. But what it really is, what it's meant to be, is a thank you to all of you. And I really mean that. We feel the core simming community has really embraced the sim, and you believe in our 10-year journey that we always talk about. You waited for improvements. You celebrated when we had wins. You were tolerant when we made some mistakes, but fundamentally this is for you guys, and we try to put something together that is a nice package. And obviously for all of you who already have the sim, it's going to be free. So if we just look at this real quick. We did some of this already yesterday. If you go to the next slide.
刚才和现在都是一直在介绍李诺竞赛和年度版的内容。昨天不是今天发不是最新一期的我发那个摩飞新闻视频里有这些所有的介绍，可直接看那个视频就够了。
I hear from Paramount is awesome. Obviously, we're gonna have to wait a little bit more, but we start. People really want to play, so let's just put out the plane now. So Sobo did this plane. I think we're quite proud of it. There's also 2 airports that are coming. Basically,
F-18是Sobo 自己做的。
Space Force Base, which is just was renamed, and then the Marine Corps Air Station in Myanmar. And then the next plane is the Porter, the PC-6 from Pilatus. It's a famous plane, awesome stall plane. We have quite a bit of variations. It's been developed by Hans Hartmann and Alexander Metzger. So you know those guys probably from the CRJ that they made for Airsoft. They're working with us also on the ATR. But this Pilatus was in development for
PC6 Porter 是和 Aerosoft 合作的。
So here we go. So this is coming to the Game of the Year edition. It comes in several different versions.
Aerosoft 各位如果不知道的话，现在商店里的那个收费的 CRJ 是他们做的。
A float with glass cockpit. So it's quite elaborate. And I think you're going to like it a lot. Then Cub Crafters, the NX Cub, which is basically, we have an awesome relationship with Cub Crafters. They're right around the corner here in Yakima. And they said to us, hey, we have a new version of the X Cub coming out. Do you want to put it into the sim? We're like, sure, awesome. So those things.
音画不同步是吧？
So often that a manufacturer wants us to do something. That's awesome, right? That's what we want. And then ultimately we can give those things away to you just straight through for free. The Volocopter is something we announced at Gamescom. Fascinating company, the eVTOL that they're making called Volocity. And so it's an urban air taxi. And it was just really cool because the team at Asobo gets to basically collaborate straight with the engineering team that makes the real aircraft for Volocopter. And so that's our first sort of pinpoint landing. It's not quite a helicopter, as you know, but it's sort of the first one where you can do pinpoint landings. Should be quite exciting. It's like a glimpse.
等一下，我改一下这个音频输出的方式，有点怪，有点怪。
Aviat Special S1S, so the one-seater version of one of our most popular planes. And then the next slide shows a little bit more on what we're doing with airports. So we have, as I said, Asobo made 2, and then our partner that does a lot of the airports for World Updates, Gaia, is contributed Zurich and Lugano, both super cool. And then we have a new partner, Flight Sim Studios, and they contributed 4, Kassel, Leipzig, Beromünster, and Memmingen. And on top of that, we have 6 new discovery flights that are actually made by Perfect Flight, and then 14 new tutorials that are in collaboration between Asobo and FS Academy, which is another new partner that we have. And then being contributed, they have new cities that they could make available. So we have new cities in England. We have Helsinki, which we really tried hard for World Update 5. It just came in too late. And so we have 5 cities in England, something in Germany,
现在调差不多。
where I studied.
最开始那段各位抱歉，第一次这么干，有些参数调的不是特别好。
We are pleased to
现在还是介绍年度版的内容，刚才把飞机介绍完了，现在正在介绍这个机场。内容也是我的那期视频里说的这些。
But there are early versions of some of these things.
拿出来，
So
中文对照一下。
that I think the Sim Update 7 that comes out at the same time with the Game of the Year.
机场是德国的莱比锡。
All right, so that was
明根、卡塞尔、瑞士杜加诺、苏黎世和贝罗明斯特。
If you already bought
Now,
Microsoft Flight Sim, it's free.
let's go to so because this is a lot of information we did. And honestly, it was funny when we talked to marketing. We're like, hey, we're announcing this and this and this, and it actually gets complicated to get the message straight. So let's spend a little bit of time answering questions just related to.
So if anyone has questions about the Game of the Year, feel free to type it in chat. The first question I had, Jorg, is a lot of people are wondering, is this Game of the Year edition replacing the standard edition of the Sim?
It is, yeah. So basically, if you think about it, like the standard edition is essentially all different SKUs, right? There's a premium and premium deluxe, they all include standard. So we're basically
这是一个官方确认，就是这个年度版是直接把现在的标准版给替代了。
It also comes to Game Pass that way, so it really supplants.
就是无论你怎么获取的游戏，在下个月18号之后，你只要买游戏或者你玩游戏玩的都是这个年度版，相当于是一个重新包装。
Question from I see in chat and also asked in the forums. Does the arrival of the Super Hornet in Microsoft Flight Simulator mean native supersonic flight and
这个问题好，是不是基础支持了这个超音速？
Yeah, so I saw a lot of questions on the F-18. So the F-18 is fairly realistic in the flight models. The maximum speed curve goes from Mach 1 at sea level up to Mach 1.6, around I think 30,000 feet, and then it goes back down, just like the rear one. So supersonic, if you're at the right altitude, the fuel consumption is correct, the acceleration is correct. It has an all-new fly-by-wire model, which respects the different maximum G-forces. It has the button where you can switch from maximum 7.5, I think, to 9. It has 2 fly-by-wire modes, just like the rear one. For one which is when you pull up the flaps, it goes into AOA hold mode instead of load factor.
网速不太好。
It has the auto throttle. It has all the roll weights are correct. I mean, by the POH, the way it feels, the handles, and the flight model, it's very realistic. So yeah, it's got supersonic. So I usually don't do a lot of because I'm in the launch office. I don't do a lot of audio, but I think that it has the boom, supersonic boom. It's got and the cockpit has all the glass cockpits, etc. There's the 3D sort of transparent holographic cockpit. It's it's a very realistic flight model and to the POH.
And Wami's asking, is the HUD collimated?
What?
Is the HUD collimated?
I don't know what that means.
法国人不知道这英文啥意思。
Review that question and probably answer that.
I think the question is does. I think it means the question is does the cockpit do the holographic HUD thing? And the answer is yes. We did a engine big improvement in order to make this possible, and this will, by the way, be accessible for the third party. So now it's possible to do this type of display in the Sim for everyone.
There were quite a few third parties that wanted this, so this is a lot of this when we do an update, it obviously benefits everybody. So that was a highly requested feature.
然后几个信息，一个是确实有超音速，但是这个气动从他们刚才回答的来看，气动方面我现在无法确定，只能等下个才能知道。然后那个 F18不是有个 HUD 吗？那个 HUD 是他们完全做好的一个可以和环境互动的，比如说着陆指引什么的，那个 HUD 都有。然后这个系统第三方插件可以直接用。
This is gonna be in the options menu. Basically, when you boot up the sim, normally
DX12 这个是 DX12 是之前预告一样是PC 版下月会有 DX12， 然后 DX12 是一个可选的选项，相当于是一个先行更新，然后做一个选项来先放上看看。
If your driver or whatever, if you have a crash and once you're in the DX12 and you can't switch back, that would be a problem. And then so currently at the moment. Unless the driver or graphics card or whatever is more optimized in DirectX 12, performance should be the same. So we didn't do anything special. I mean, we have to redo a lot of things in DirectX 12, but not in a way that it would be super more performant or whatever. Currently, this is really just a DirectX 12 version of the same thing. The goal here is to find issues because there's so many use cases.
下回的更新的 DX12 只是换 API 版本。游戏引擎底层没有任何修改，所以对帧率影响到底怎么样，现在也不确定。
Because it's very likely that there's going to be stuff that is not going to work on specific graphic card or whatever on specific configurations. And as we debug this, at some point maybe we're going to make DirectX 12 the default or whatever. We're going to find once it's stable enough. But currently it's opt-in. It's in the options menu where you switch it on. And we have had some testing graphic card.
作为可选项是相当于一个公开测试环节。当测试的差不多的时候，他们会将DX12 作为默认存在，就是 DX1 就直接退出历史舞台了。
We hope people are going to report issues just like when there is a flighting or something like this. If they have
应该是在那个时候之后，他们应该是才会试装一些 DX12 专有的特性，比如像光追什么的，那些应该是之后的事情。
Awesome, thank you so much. JMB says, are the Windows 11 celebration locations a secret or like a scavenger hunt, or are they listed anywhere?
Good idea to make it a secret. Unfortunately, we made a video. So I don't know. I don't actually know if that video is out, but I know we made it with all the 11 locations, so not that much of a secret.
Okay.
But it comes with a cool livery for the X-Plus 330.
I do like it.
那个和 V11的联动不是有一个11个庆祝地点嘛？然后本来是秘密，不知道在哪儿。然后官方 Rogue 说他们已经做了一个视频，但视频好像是被流出来了，所以现在已经不是秘密了。
On the base thing, I mean, there was a very good conversation last time we had this chat where somebody said, "Hey, we don't need the model, we just need the CFG file," and we've had a conversation about it. We're not quite locked yet, but in general, we like what's going on with a bunch of the modding, right? Salties, certainly fly-by-wire.
是这个年度版加的5架飞机的这个
I'm all for it.
mod 的
We just need to
问
find the
题。
exact right balance. Just to be clear, because I think it's not quite clear to everybody. Some of the manufacturers don't want us to do this. You can probably imagine which ones. So we just need to double check with them before we unlock something that essentially is owned by them. But our intent is that everybody can mod as much as possible. So we'll get back to you on the specifics.
是很多有几个飞机制造商是不想让这些飞机很容易的被修改，是这个问题。所以年度版的那5款飞机不能直接去打帽的。
David?
It's not when we have focused on not yet on airliners. We basically added 2 types of tutorials. One with the Icon and the other one with the Cessna. The key aspect of it is the G1000, and this basically lead the beginners to be able to fly, especially IFR. Which is already a big step forward in order to go deeper into the simulation and aviator skills. So
现在这个问题是那个年度版里会有两个新的教程，
tutorials.
Gotcha.
其中有一个是那个 IFR 是那个仪表飞行的一个教程。 第二个问题是那个 K32074会不会有校正
？Improve the weather, especially for vaccine simmers, because the meta implementation was not perfect. And we took advantage of this pass we were doing on the weather, on the revamp of the weather, in order to
讲
improve
的
the
是
whole system.
天气的问题。
Basically, the intent is to have a much fresher data coming from the weather. Before, it was a big forecast for basically half a day, and users were actually downloading all of that all together. But basically, the forecast was, when you were playing, at some point, the forecast was 6 hours late, I would say. Now it will be refreshed much more frequently, so we will benefit for much more accurate weather data. And on top of this, the metadata will gonna be blended into those.
这之前预告过那个他们天气预报系统会加多个来源，以确保更新的频率。
Correct wind, temperature, pressure on each airport. We are right now working on the most correct implementation we can do visually, because obviously
就是他提到有一些像 Meta 数据可能会晚6个小时，太晚了，已经用不了了。
And the metadata, so we are working on the blending on this. So that's the intent, and we've done huge progress in that, and I think vaccine players will be excited with what we are doing right now.
Yeah, in general, weather, we all agree weather is super important. That's why we have Media Blue. They're a really great partner for this. We know that the role-playing part is really important, that the meta is right. So that's the focus, and we will see. There's this transition you have to do between the metadata and the forecast data, and it's that getting that visually to be perfect is just a tricky, finicky thing. But fundamentally, you should expect that the meta is right.
Yes. Last question I was seeing, are there going to be any more videos or footage released of the FA-18 before it comes out?
Yeah, we're gonna make a trailer.
F18 会有个预告片。
But yeah, but we just finished. I mean, did you see the crazy 8-minute trailer we did for the Reno races? That took quite a while. So we're gonna get busy in the next few weeks.
Do we know if it has Afterburner FX on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and correct afterburner consumption. Correct afterburner.
FA18 会有 Afterburner， 那个怎么翻译 ？Afterburner 就是它那个喷气引擎后面那个喷火那个东西。我回来查一下怎么样翻译。
All right, let's move on to talk about the Reno Air Races. York, I believe you had something to say before we.
I just wanted to say, it's, why Reno? I hear that sometimes internally, sometimes from some of you. We try to embrace our history. And when you look at FSX, one of the things that the team had done at ACES was the acceleration pack. Actually, I've been standing right behind me. It was quite fun. The acceleration pack was actually an FA-18, and then it was Reno Air Races and it Red Bull Air Races. And there was a point in time before we launched on PC, so before 2020, we said, let's just do this. Let's embrace our history and go there again. But then as we looked at it, it's cool, but it was probably a little bit more shallow than what we thought was appropriate. So we said, let's just double down on Reno. And we started talking to the Reno folks, the RARA folks, about 2 years ago.
Reno 的这个 DLC 2年前就已经跟他们竞赛委员会有过交流。
We're going to pick 4, and then we would make a plane per class. But then go deep on those planes, basically go really either model them really well or even scan them, which we did for a whole bunch of them, and then collaborate with the pilots and the owners of the individual.
那些飞机还和他们这个飞行员有过合作。
To like the 40 of the world's most famous racers, and we got to actually look at their planes, visit them, scan them, etc., etc. And we try to reproduce this as
包括像是 3D 扫描之类的，都是跟飞行员直接合作。
So that's what Reno is. And then, by the way, we're the first. Because we always have to license everything. I think we're the first sim ever that actually got a license from Aero Vodachodi. Took a long time. And we maybe one last thought. We partnered with quite a few people, right? I think I saw yesterday in the forums.
合计包那40款飞机都是和每一个飞行员拿到的许可。
We started with a gentleman, his name is Mike Johnson. who did an L39 years ago, a really good one, and he helped us with all the specifics. He knows all the racers. And then we had help even on the modeling and execution side. So that might come as a surprise. So we had Blue Mesh helped us. Jimmy is here, I think. So hey, thank you, Jimmy. The West Virginia looks great. We had help from Orbex. They made several planes, and we also had help from
Orbex 都参与了。
Scott's team did a great job with a couple of the P51s. So this is really it was a massive effort. Like when you think about it, 40.
雨诺这个到底有多少个第三方的参与开发呀？
With all that said, David. By the way, I saw a few times who's David. Where's Martial? David is the creative director at Asobo, and you haven't seen him quite as much. Maybe at the very first event, global preview event, he was there and he needed to be there. In order to not blow up this forum, we typically just pick 3 people. And Martial, given that we want to focus today on Reno and all the work that went into it, David is here and is going to be with us the entire time. So enjoy, David. Let's go. Let's look at it.
So about Reno. So to start with, we are super proud and excited to
现在画面是那个竞赛地点的机场前后变化。
So just to summarize, for those who might not know exactly what is Reno, Reno is a race, is a racing event which happens every year at the Reno State Airport in Nevada. Simply put, it's the fastest motor race in the world. So I think the current record reached a mind-blowing 497 miles per hour, which is just, if you think about it, it's just crazy. And this happens very close to the ground and with 8 planes racing all together. So it's easy to say that in this context, the piloting skills are put to the extreme limit. And it's exactly what we have tried to reproduce in the sim. But we know it's more than that. As you mentioned, this race features iconic planes, and each of them are literally unique. I mean, really unique. You know, it's not industrial.
这是他们拍到的真飞机，作为参考用的。
By the team of passionate pilots and engineers, and to at a point that to give you an order of magnitude, quite often the Reno Air Race planes are going twice faster than the stock version of the same plane. So the engineering behind it is just crazy. So regarding the race itself, it features different class so Jane is actually showing what all the reference work that has been made for this expansion. Mm-hmm. So all of this has been gathered thanks to the pilot and the teams we have worked with, and you can see that each of the
40款飞机应该都是这么来的。
Here we see P50, so now at T6, but none of them is actually a stock.
这对少说得做1年呀，这玩意儿。
Different cockpits, different wing tips, different even sometimes shapes. So this was a huge amount of work, and really it was fascinating to see the amount of work in the actual plane has been put, and each of the plane in the sim will gonna be reproduced with the right spec and right mesh, extra.
游戏主界面。
So I wanted to talk about the place itself because, as I was saying,
是在活动那个栏里有李诺的这个
Jane, if you can
这个入口。
Before after video, please.
还有个得分啊。
It involves different things. Basically, we have improved the satellite data.
Oh.
Yeah. Please,
yeah.
Jane, help me. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So as you can see, we have improved. So this is before, this is after. So the mountains have been better defined, the ground has been better defined. This is the Reno State Airport before, this is after the update we did. It's not only about the airport itself, it's also about the event. So we have added the crowd. And you can see the beginning of the actual plane list. So all of this to mention that it's also it's just not only the race. So by the way, for example, we'll have the speaker of the actual event, and it will comment what you're doing during the race. You will also have your team leader that will inform you.
在这个赛场里还会有大喇叭在广播正在上演的东西。
Exactly.
That's cool.
So it really gives
这边的居然触发这个问
specific
题。
flavor to it and a very great immersion. So let's go to the air race flow now, because I wanted to go a little bit deeper into what it is actually, how it will going to be presented.
Sure.
这是里诺竞赛的主菜
Yeah,
单，
so in the
规
activity
则
news,
竞
this is
赛
the
排行榜，
race
这是3个
itself. So as you can see, we have rules, we have race and leaderboards.
规，
So
当时是规则
some
竞
kind of
赛
rules
排行
are,
榜
you know,
这3个。
kind of complex, at least on paper. Actually, in game, it's quite simple to get into it, but we added those pages in order to make everyone comfortable on how it works. So
规则还挺复杂， 好多页。
of tracks, depending of the class, how quick match works, how time trial works. So typically in quick match, the playing performance will be normalized.
有快速比赛，就是直接点个按钮就能去匹配的。
Same chance to win. Some explanation about the warnings, because you cannot cut the gates, you can't go too high.
然后应该是分4个组，
Pit special,
正好送的正好给的那4款飞机是4个竞赛组里的。
procedures for departures, which is different from the rest. Extra explanation of the UI. So
UI 上会有这个
it's just
竞速的一些东西，比如说当前的排名啊、圈数什么。
explain the full flow. So as you can see, there is a Reno score. So basically, it works a little bit like a Elo score. So each time you do a race, we take an account.
现在这个是刚才那个是完成竞赛之后的页面，那个
You
UI。
inform your own Reno score. So it's
现在应该是直接进游戏是这个样子。
So the more race you win, the better your Reno score will going to be, and also depending on the racer you have beaten.
Quick match 快速比赛 ，Time trial 应该是 Time trial 应该有点像街机，就是你时间一到你就被踢出去了，是那种模式。
So in this case, unlimited, which is P51.
这里是选飞机，但是这个飞机应该是你买了才会有。
So in this case, it's Miss America. You find the lobby.
这是开始竞赛，
Race.
天气、时间、对手。
Move on. This is the waiting for the race. So you can see.
这是应该就是一般多人模式里那些游戏大厅啊。
And how the lobby will going to be fulfilled with people. So
这是开始比
qualification
赛。
starts. In real life, it's a bit more complex than what was done, but in
然后
order to make it more
这就是一个竞速游戏的 UI 了。
and enjoyable for everyone. We just do one lap of qualification, which define your position on the grid at the beginning of the race itself.
等于它是
done, as you can see on the
第一
right.
圈是那个
You will go for
是
the race itself.
排行赛，是一个人飞，然后第2次飞开始是
But you see
正式比
the
赛，
later how the race
那跟
itself
一般的竞速是一样
works.
的。
You can see here a little bit of the UI. I will come back to this later. And when the race is finished, we wait for the other user to cross the line. If it's too long, we stop the race anyway. And you have your final position.
最后的结果
The winner
UI，
score is informed, as you can see on the right of the
哎，
screen.
那个
the red
得分
color.
还能
You can see,
减啊？
the other
得分到底怎么
players'
算？
score, which obviously inform
还有世界排名啊！
very good pilot, you will have a better increment on your Reno score, extra. You will also break down the Reno score into each different class. So
哎，这个得分我个人觉得应该是那个 MMR， 就是匹配等级。他用得分的方式把你匹配等级显示出来。哦，这么飞的呀！竖出来一个杆让你飞过去。
Just few seconds of gameplay, but you can see that in this case we were only 3 racers, but it goes up to 8. You can see
所以一次比赛里最多可以有8名玩家，现在这个只有3个。
which are super agile. So in this case, it's really about maneuverability. So you can see the exact same race, but seen from another point of view. So you can use the quick lock button in order to see what happens. Oh, Jane, you have switched to something completely different.
Sure, do you want to go back to?
这是什么画面？这个画面是
Yeah.
又剧透什么东西了？
Yeah, please. We restart from.
我对这个里诺竞赛了解的不多啊，但我个人感觉是不是飞得越低，应该是飞得越低越好，通过地面效应能把你撑上来。
We have implemented UI in order to, in the world UI in order to help people to figure out where are the gates, etc. But if you want, you can hide them if you want to be really true to life. Honestly, at the beginning, I recommend to use it. It's easier. You can already, I will come back to this later, but you can already see a little bit the effect of the drag. So it's not at all like in Formula One. You know, in Formula One, you will, or car racing, you will be, in general, you will try to be behind the other car in order to benefit from the aspiration.
这说是跟一般的什么F1不一样 ，F1你可能会选择在第一名的后面待着，但是这个飞行竞速你要在它后面待着，你会吃尾流，你会很惨。
Basically, very old plane, and in this case, it's really about trying to minimize as much as possible the drag of your plane. So
这新天翁是一个老飞机，它就讲这个你驾驶这架的话，你要竭尽一切全力去把这个风阻降下去。
In order to avoid the other plane, he had to make a very brutal turn, which
这个就飞得很低啊！我操，这没撞上吗？
With those planes, you will lose a lot of speed, which is not great, not good to win the race.
这吃尾流了，这是。刚才提到就是说 F1那 F1的话，你可能会选择在这个第一名的后面去让他去吃风阻嘛。但是开飞机的话，你要在别人后面，你会吃尾流，你会更惨。
Sure, there is no reason it doesn't work. To be honest, we still need to debug some stuff on it, but yeah, sure, it's the goal. Typically, in first-person view, it makes it really incredible, but yeah. Well, so maybe you have seen that we have added some FX. I will come back also to this later. But when you go really close to the ground, we have added the dust effect.
哦，接近地面还会有尘土效果。 我刚才提到的，
the drag on the ground, which tends to make some dust fly.
这是一个新的特效，之前没有。
There's a bit of internal view. So now the P51, you've seen just before the fact that the plane shake just because of the previous plane. And it doesn't really convey, it doesn't really perceive. It's hard to really see it in the video. But I guarantee that when you actually pilot the plane, being behind another plane is really dangerous.
提到这个是提到尾流这个问题。
As a result, you crash. So obviously, we do not end the race because of that. We just respawn the user back on track. So this video is actually about the replication in online multiplayer. So for Reno, because it's so precise and because planes are so close to each other, we needed to make it super precise and accurate, and a huge amount of work has been made in order to do this. So the plane you see in front of the plane we are in is actually this exact same plane, but with an offset, and it's the exact same plane but with the online signal. So what you can observe is that it's super smooth.
哦，现在这个画面是演示这个之前提到过，就是
catch up.
多人模式里的这个玩家之间飞机的这个距离判定，现在优化之后可以离这么近。现在玩过多人模式的飞友应该都知道，就是你两架飞机离得很远的时候，他就判定你们要撞上了。然后这个系统是应该是下个月更新吧。然后所有的多人模式不只是在竞速模式下，所有多人模式都会变成这个样子，会离得很近。
Okay. We believe that now, thanks to this improvement, even the formation aerobatic flight and squat
我
flight.
提到，因为有这么个改动之后，就是你甚至可以和其他的朋友一块儿做一个什么飞行编队之类都可以做了。
All right, I have the turbulences video next. Would you like me to put that on?
Yeah. So we've seen a little bit of it.
啊，这是上个月直播里提的那个尾流的那个问
You
题。
can see the plane jiggles when he's behind.
你明显看到这个画面里，就是我们驾驶的这架飞机在晃的原因是前面这架飞机的尾流，我们被我们吃到。
Very important parameters when you are racing, because you need to really take into account the plane in front of you, not only for itself, because obviously if you collide with it, you would be respawned, but also because of this. So you need to observe the other trajectory, which is a very specific thing compared to other type of racing.
这个画面是新的，在机舱视角下看吃尾流的效果。
Yeah, in this case, so close to the ground, I guarantee you are in danger.
And we have our final video on FX.
Yeah.
这是预告片吗？还是？哦，看到了，这贴近地面的话会有尘土，这个是新效果。
After the plane goes through, there is some dust, which is basically
好低呀、
in the air because of the drag effect of the wing applied to the ground.
这个是新效果，以前没有的，这是个新效果。
With this, and again, it will also be implemented for the rest. We did also a specific work on the exhaust effect.
这个气动的视觉特效，
To those planes, so with the sounds, it makes
启动飞机的时候还会
sense because
一样堆尘土出来。
capture how those planes actually start up and with the exact same effects. And here is something very cool that comes also on F-18 is the G-lock effect. So this is the
哦，
the black
这是如果
one when you-
这是 F18里，如果你把 G 力提得太高的话，像画面，刚才是有6个 G，
and hop now
会黑屏。
back. So something we don't hear is this is that we really respect what happens in real life. So first you will lose the vision, you're gonna get gray, then you're gonna get black, and then you will lose the sound itself, and you will even lose the control. So
而且黑屏的时候，那个它有个效果是画面会变成黑白嘛，这种效果。
Also the red effect when you go down and the blood goes into the head. So this
3个
is
G、4个 G、
the-
5个 G、6个 G，
Because we added this, as you can
在
see on the
在
video on the
机舱
left,
外能看到这个效果。
the G indicators, which indicates how many Gs you take. It was important to do it for Reno because the Gs inform the load factor and it informs the speed or again the drag. So basically how much you damage your speed. And so it was needed to have this indicator. Basically, Reno Air Racer.
总之就是不要乱飞，容易把自己玩死。
To improve their lap.
哎，这不是 F18，这是新天翁，新天翁就有这个效果了。
And the red G-lock will appear.
哦，这是
So again, we have
Oh.
the sun here, but at some
这是
point we
负
lose
G 力，
the
如果过大的话，
sun,
和
we lose the control.
负 G 如果过大的话，还会变成红屏，
Hope that it-
因为你的血都到你的脑袋上了，变成红屏。
While we're preparing so we answered the L39, and we have improved also because those planes are custom and sometimes they're old. We have improved the effect also of the cockpit. You know, the little scratches on the cockpit, the way it interacts with the sunlight. So it's super cool.
Awesome. That's really, I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. There are a ton of questions that I'm seeing, and we got lots from the forums as well. So feel free to type in your Reno questions now. We're going to go ahead and answer those. We'll start with some pre-selected ones while we look at chat. And that is, do you need the Xbox Live Gold for Xbox and PC or just Xbox?
So on PC you can play without gold. Any works. On Xbox I think it's locked behind gold. So basically I think the specific is here comes the list. Xbox with gold has full multiplayer. Xbox with silver cannot participate.
Live 的
Windows
订
with
阅，
gold
这个没办法是 Xbox 的这个限制 ，PC 版没有这个限制。
participate.
Fantastic.
玩过 Xbox 的朋友应该都知道 ，Xbox 多人模式是在一个收费墙之后的。
About the G-Lock thing,
Go ahead.
and they noticed that the G-Lock was quite fast, but it's because how we capture this was actually quite fast. And it's true that it really depends on time. So we, just to be clear with everyone, we really applied the formulas which have been observed in people, and we were gonna even have in the menu, you can define if you were a G Suite or not, which basically improve your resistance to the G effect, and also your level of training. Basically, you can go from a classic general aviation pilot who never do
刚才
this.
GD 过大黑屏的那个效果你是可以调的，你能承受多少个 GD 你是可以调出来的。
And this makes a big difference. But to be clear, even in this context, if you spend 10 seconds up to 5 or 5, 6 for the best of the pilot, G's during more than 10 seconds, everyone gets black. So if you go and if you are close to the limit, it will only be gray, and if you release the pressure, it will instantly come back. But if you go behind the threshold, you will actually get fully black.
Okay, very cool. Thank
So
you.
it's basically, in a nutshell, it's more precise than the video looks like.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you buy the $20 version of the Reno expansion and you later maybe want to get the full collection, is there an upgrade path that might be cheaper than buying it?
It's actually more complicated than this. So yes, so the answer is yes. First off, it's called dynamic bundles. So you can buy if you get
这个是确认的。如果你买了20美元的那个包之后，可以再升级到60美元那个包。
What we call the full collection. And then because I think people's head would explode, we didn't put that on our little graphic that we put out yesterday. You can also buy each class, and you can also buy each plane. So you can basically sort of like a smorgasbord of
那40款飞机是可以独立买的。
Like really, and we try to make that as accessible as possible. In my mind, so we had a long discussion.
昨天没说是因为怕大家 脑袋炸，是这个意思。
And we are trying to be very conscious of the third-party ecosystem, so we try to not do crazy stuff that then puts pricing pressure on everybody, or it would be unfair. So we basically said, after long discussions, each plane, if you buy an individual plane, is $10. If you buy a class, which comes like 10 planes of A class, I want to say that's $30. So that's $3 a plane. And then if you get the full collection, you get 40 planes. So it's like $1.50 a plane, which is basically, we try to stagger it. You can basically pick what you like.
Okay.
But either purchase you make counts against whatever you do after. Right? So it's a very dynamic
还是买合机包便宜，因为一架是10美元，20美元那个包有4架。
Of course.
Of course. Okay.
Crazy not to. They're awesome planes.
买到的飞机是可以在任何时候飞，不止在竞赛里。
Are all 40 planes modeled the same? We kind of got into this already. What's the difference besides the liveries? Or there performance differences in each plane?
Oh yeah, we get the plane stats from the pilots and the mechanics. We oftentimes scan them. I mean, we got Steve Hinton, for example, let us come to the planes of fame.
那个完整包里不是40款吗？40款飞机40款飞机4类，但是每一款飞机是有不一样的，真的不一样，包括一些气动什么的不一样。
Like all 40 of them basically give us full access, and there's daily emails, right? We're making sure that it looks exactly right, that the cockpit is exactly right, that the stats are exactly right. And several of them are actually going to help us with really testing it to make sure that the plane feels exactly accurate. So yeah, it's as authentic as we can.
这是有
Okay, and
真正的开那架飞机的飞行员来做飞行测试。
Is everybody going to be at the same performance or what?
So I will explain this a bit. Basically, whatever the plane you buy or the pack you buy, as soon as you play Reno in quick match, everyone will gonna have the same performance, which are defined by the best plane, basically, of the class. But as soon as you play in time trial or you play in free flight, we will have the exact performance of the plane as in real life. And again, keep in mind that each of them are different, so you will have the real specs for each of the plane in free flight and in time trial, with a dedicated leaderboard, by the way.
Okay,
然后有一个补充一点，就是在多人模式下，真的多人竞速模式下，所有的飞机性能是一样的。
Yeah, so yes, it's the case in Reno. So what happens in Reno is that when it happens,
其实刚才说就是，在竞速模式下，所有的每一类飞机的性能是完全一致的，这相当于公平性。然后在其他模式，任何其他模式下的性能都是有区别。然后这个问题是有没有这个碰撞探测？是有的，就是如果你俩飞机离得真是过近的话，会碰撞。
Buy the planes, will they still get to see them, or do they see generic aircraft when they're flying multiplayer?
Yeah, you will actually the planes, even if you haven't purchased the plane, you will see them in the menu anyway. And if you play against player who have actually buy the for example,
这是如果你没买的话，你还能看见其他玩家买的飞机，这是一个确认。
Also during the race, I mean. The only restriction is that you will not be able to play with it, obviously, but otherwise you will be able to at least enjoy the visual of them.
Cool. Thank you. And will the race timing functionality also be released as part of the SDK for use by developers to form their own races?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's our goal, not at the very beginning. Basically, think about this as the first
这个问题是那个竞速模式的这些功能会不会进入 SDK？ 这 SDK 就是他们第三方开发插件的一个工具包。目前还没有，但是计划里会有。就是以后第三方团队可以开发类似的东西出来。
There are some other things we're prioritizing right now. I mean, Seb has been he has been writing tons of documents for planes, for plane developers. So that's currently the focus. Racing comes at some later point in time.
Thank you. So will this be multiplayer only, or can you race against AI in a quick match?
No, there is no AI in the Reno Air Race game mode. The intent was really to focus on the competitive aspect of it with real players. So
不能和电脑 AI 竞速，只能和其他玩家竞速。
Can mods and third-party planes be used for Reno Air Races?
Longer term, that's the goal. Like we like there are obviously Bearcats and Alt-29s, and I mean there's 7 race modes now in Reno, so we think of this as an expandable thing. And our goal is that third-party planes.
这个是第三方的插件机能不能用在竞速里面？目前是不能，但计划会能。
Ultimately, Reno is not a static thing, right? The race has been around for a long time.
但我估计，如果真的是能的话，它可能因为竞速模式本身它不会把性能标准化嘛，我估计也会有类似的系统。
We want to make that as adaptable as the real world is.
Great. And is there private matchmaking in Reno Air Races?
Yeah, so initially it was not the intent because again we wanted to have as many people in the lobbies and in order to
这是有没有这个私人房间？玩过多人游戏的玩家应该都知道这个概念，私人房间的事情，目前是没有。
In the few months after the official release, we'll probably come back with a customizable game mode in order to unlock some options like being able to play with the actual real life performance of each planes, extra, and set the weather, set tons of different things in order to really be able to customize your race.
最开始的时候只能去公开的排队快速比赛，然后之后会加入建房间的功能。像建房间的时候，你是可以改什么时间啊、天气都是可以改的。 包括这个标准化性能这个规则你都可以改。
Yeah, I mean, I think we all acknowledge multiplayer is hard. We always said like there will be undoubtedly some things that we'll get feedback and people want us to fix, and then the private lobbies is something, private matchmaking is something we're going to add. We don't have a particular date on it. Like we will certainly try to get this done, hopefully by the end of the year, but let's not commit. Let's not overcommit, but we want to do it.
Yeah. Question from chat, maybe in the update to Reno, do you plan on having people be able to spectate the race or some kind of observer mode?
It's not the case right now. Again, it's part of the things we might actually develop for the future.
观众模式目前没有，以后可能会有。
Okay. All right, so I think that answers a lot of our Reno questions. Everyone can continue to ask them in the forums as well, and we'll keep trying to answer those questions for you over the next few weeks before it releases. But let's go ahead and move on to something not Reno or Game of the Year related, and that is, of course, our feedback snapshot. And Jorg, I know there were, instead of going through everything, we're going to just pick out some things that you have some updates on.
这是官方请愿排行。
Jane told me don't go through everything. So
这是每次官方直播的例行环节。
So we'll just pick a few.
来把请愿排行过一下。
Does it work?
Oh no, it's not working. The animations are working.
Oh my god! Oh my animations.
They're very nice animations.
Okay, fine. So the first one was helicopters. I just thought, I know Seb is working on it. So Seb, do you want to give a quick update of what's happening?
直升机在做了，不要再问了。
Yes, so I mean we're just at the beginning for helicopters, but the goal is basically to update. It's just like we updated the flight model by taking out some of the hard-coded stuff and replacing it with tiny little surfaces that are interacting with the airflow. The goal with the helicopters is to make these tiny little surfaces being able to move very fast, which means they become, I mean, they're going to move so fast I know, I mean, on a propeller, for example, a surface can do several spins in just one frame.
现在最大的一个问题是，现在的气动模型里面是不支持某一个飞行面快速移动的，比如像直升机的这个螺旋桨会移动非常快。就现在最大的技术难点是这个。
So something maybe people have never noticed, but when you currently in the sim, when you have wing flex, the wings animate exactly based on the amount of lift and load factor of the wings, but the actual surfaces don't move yet, because in the sim, except for control surfaces, they are really static. What the system is going to be allowing is that anything on the plane can move for real. 然
后提到一点，现在比如说你看空客和波音的飞机的那个机翼会动嘛，但是现在在模拟器里，即便机翼在动，像副翼啊、进翼之类的，实际在模拟器里边计算是固定死的，不会动的。然后这个他们也会要改，这个因为如果这个不改的话，直升机做不出来。
And that work is going to serve on helicopters. So helicopters blades have so many different effects because, well, basically one is, for example, when you move forward and the blades are spinning, one side goes faster than the other, and there's even an area sometimes on the blades where it goes.
总结来说，就是直升机螺旋桨的气动模型是相当复杂的，目前。它相当于是从零开始做的。然后从他们角度来讲，如果螺旋桨的气动做完的话，然后这些气动的更新还会反过来更新现有的这些水平翼飞机，因为很多东西都是一样的。比如说，它螺旋桨的这个。气动更新完之后，现有的所有螺旋桨飞机气动也会直接更新。因为现在在模拟器，如果你开这个开发模式的话，也能看见现在的螺旋桨飞机其实螺旋桨上是没有气动模型的，它只是提供一个推力而已。但你要是真正做直升机的话，直升机的所有的气动全是来自螺旋桨，对吧？必须把这个模拟出来才可以。
Basically feeding back what the plane surface do into the airflow, so that you get all the turbulences.
但你要是说嘛，也可以说他们想做的太复杂了。他们真的是想把螺旋桨转多少度会发生什么情况都给模拟出来。如果你只是想操作直升机的话，你可能都不关心这个东西，对吧？但是从他们角度来说，他们既然是做这种模拟器，所以他们必须想要这个结果。
Which then react, and basically the faster you go, the more they move backwards. All this needs to be simulated and will feed back into planes. So, for example, currently something like deep stall is really more hard-coded. So we calculate where the tunnel is of turbulence behind a wing, and it's sort of if the elevator gets in there, then you lose authority. This will be natively simulated once we have that simulation. So we're trying to make helicopters in a way that they benefit to regular planes.
这是确认刚才我提到的那些东西，它再反复确认，就是直升机启动的更新，他们是打算真正是做到完美模拟上，然后这些模拟的系统还会能反过来完善整个游戏的全部内容。
The next animation was about Chinese localization. I've been told that it's going to be done in January, so we probably ship this somewhere in
中文版1月份确认。
It makes some folks happy. Multi-screen functionality. Martial isn't here today.
1月份啊。
He talks about this. Seb, do you know?
No, I don't have any update on this.
Nope. We'll wait for Martial to come back next time. Replay missing. Well, we're going to do what we said we're going to do. We're going to put out the system that the video team is working as part of the Sim Update 7 on November 18th, and then we're going to improve the UI and the UX over time. But you'll have what we have. How about that? DX12 we talked about coming. Also just a few weeks away now.
回放和 DX12 都是下月更新的事情，之后再说吧。
We hired someone. Last time I said we wanted to hire someone. That person ended up taking another job. So we now hired somebody starting November 15th. So this is now moving forward. We have a spec.
Nice.
Some of you have helped us already, so that's great news. Can't wait. Gliders and sailplanes. I actually saw a bunch of comments. We have picked our partner. We will announce that partner on the next Dev Q&A.
之前说的这个滑翔机是他们已经找到了合作方，但还没公布。
And all that stuff, and I think Seb is very well aware of these things. I can say that the partner we've picked, they are flight instructors. They know tons and tons about sailplanes, so they will be able to help us quite a bit about reading the clouds and all that is involved here. Seb, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, you
covered it all.
But too much. Okay, there's that. South Korean is also going. I think it's slightly behind Chinese, but that's in progress. Man, Jane, I don't know what was animating, what wasn't. I think disappointing mountain terrain. I just want to explain this one more time. This is not some magic fix we will do. This is everything to do with the data set. And the data set gets improved all the time. You know, we've planned out the next 2 years of world updates over the last few weeks since we last talked. And I'm optimistic we'll get quite a bit of data that is sort of in the 1 to 3 meter range for them, which is a ton better. Like some of the world right now is 30 meters, which is why you see stuff that looks like potatoes instead of mountains. But so it's going to get, as we do world updates, this is going to get better and better.
Okay.
I don't know. I saw a comment earlier about AIG. It is true. We had obviously talked to the team. It sort of fell a little bit on the side while we were frankly crunching on getting the Game of the Year edition ready and the Reno Air Races ready. But this is something we're definitely going to do now that we have more time.
有关地面 AI 的一些东西，他们会在之后他们会再努力去做，现在没时间。
Maybe to the next page.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Italy World Update, when I put an asterisk, it's not planned exactly what you're asking for, but the spirit is understood. So it might not be exactly Italy, but, you know, we're looking at that region. Shared cockpit, anything to share? Seb, David, do you know?
Seb, maybe?
No update yet. I mean, we looked heavily at multiplayer for the Reno races because the planes get so close to each other. There's been a lot of work on that, and same thing for shared cockpits where you're even closer. So I think it's gonna benefit from that, but it's no major update yet. Nothing to share later.
共享驾驶，说到共享驾驶舱，
we
目前没有什么可公布的东西。
change meteorological visibility, RVR.
Yeah, I did not develop on this previously, but obviously it's something we are working on. The idea here is to, because obviously visibility is a super important factor for the, which is
这个是关于能见度的优化。
So it's something we needed to really implement better in the sim. So we are still working on it, but definitely the visibility aspect is really taken into account, and we'll see how it will exactly land, especially on the UI side. But it's in the radar, and you will see great improvement on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the vegetation slider, Seb, you talked about this before, coming with Sim Update 7.
Well, it's always been in the sim, so that's one question which I don't really understand. If you go into the options and you go into vegetation, there's low, medium, high, ultra. That's the vegetation render distance. So we cannot add a slider where there's already size. I mean, we can make it a slider instead of a ultra high, low, medium setting. Maybe the question is, can we have
只是被渲染距离，其实现在游戏里有选项里那个选项里管植被那个就是管这个用的，只不过不是一个滑条，所以很多玩家可能理解错。
Which goes up to 400. If you go to 400, it's also pushing the tree distance further, because basically when you set tree distance, ultra, medium, high, etc., it's really a scalar that's applied on the terrain distance. And so ultra just means everything we can do, like the maximum. And so by pushing out the terrain to 400, we actually also pushed out the trees already. So there is no really need for a new slider, and because we already have one.
另外，这次更新不是把那个地景 LOD 提高到400，其实那个也影响植被的渲染距离，是相关的。
What we could maybe do is push it even further, like have the terrain have something where the trees go further than they are currently. And maybe add a level above ultra for trees or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's not a new slider. It's more like an expansion of the existing slider. But yeah, every update since like World Update has had a tree improvement and the last update too. So we're trying to push it further and further and further. Just taking advantage of the optimizations we do on the other hand, so that I would say performance stays more or less about in the same range now, and we get improved visuals as we move forward.
I'm seeing a lot of great questions. We still have a Q&A part here towards the end, but I think we need to move on to have enough time for what we have coming. So if that's all right, does anyone else have anything to add to the feedback snapshot? All right.
That's good.
All right, so save your questions. There's a ton I'm seeing in there that we will be answering in a second. But Jorg, I know you'd like to introduce...
Yeah, we have another
partner
that we want to introduce. It's going to join us today, and it is just as a preview. Next slide, maybe.
Here we go. We have
AT Simulations. 干啥的?
Hello everyone. Hi, thank you very much for inviting. Well, actually, some words about myself. I'm a developer of AT Simulations. And actually almost around 20 years in add-ons industry for Microsoft Flight Simulator, since FS 9 times, I think. So, and the thing we want to show you today is updated Antonov 2 airplane for
Antonov.
New Microsoft Flight Simulator. Yep.
ANR.
So this is a model. Actually, it's the aircraft itself. I think need no additional.
新的好多伙伴上来就带了一辆 ANR 上来。
For aviation funds, for simulation funds, and this is a model. It was developed for FSX under SIPWings brand, and then for P3D under AT Simulation brand, and now we redone it with Microsoft and Asobo for new MSFS. So that's it, and soon it will be released.
都不能做 AN224，我想开那个玩意儿。
It's quite surprisingly for you and for community. it was announced by AT Simulations, I think, around a year ago, and I'm actually apologize for some quietness for my followers, for AT Simulation followers. So now you know the reason. So it was nice to have. It was worth to wait, and I do believe it's a very nice addition to your MSFS hangar.
A2是哪年的玩意儿来了？我
That's
查一
it.
下。
Yeah. Do we know? Is it? Do we have an announcement date for this? Chat's wondering when it's coming out.
Yeah, so this is actually, so the announcement is multifold, right? So first off, when I met Andre, he told me the stories about the Antonov in Russia. That it's one of the few planes that can actually fly there in the winter because it doesn't have that many fluids, so it doesn't, stuff doesn't freeze. Andre, for what it's worth, lives in Novosibirsk, and I love the authenticity that he brings, and he really loves the plane. So that's fundamentally why we wanted to work with him. This is actually kicking off a new series of planes, believe it or not. We will call them famous flyers. So these are, think about them as planes that we take very far, just like we did with the
著名飞机的系列，
and
这是第一款。
they will be coming out alongside sim updates. So what updates? Stay what we are. Planes from 1950 and before related to a season, to a region of the world. Famous flyers aren't related to a region of the world, but they are.
还记得之前有什么当地传奇吧？那个是跟世界更新有关系的，当地的。但相当于他们又通过这种方式是想更新什么更新什么，就这意思。
And then, so Andre, when we first met, said, "Hey, I have fans and they want this plane." I was like, "Great, let's make it awesome." And but the planes are, as he said just now, they were patiently waiting without that much news. But we want to make sure it's done right. So, it will be soon, but I don't want to have an arbitrary ship date. Like I want Andre to say, "No, it's great."
发售时间不说，
But just know it's coming. We will price it as
之后再说，
as
反正
friendly
目
as
前
we
没公
have
布。
been with other things. So I can say that now.
我估计跟那个荣5.2差不多吧，应该也$10多的，应该这个样子，不会超过20。
As the first famous flyer plane. And it'll come.
索姆官方的飞机都相对是非常便宜的。
Actually, I just can add that I have a list of things to done here.
还没做完呀，现在他手里还没做完的东西。
As soon as every point would be underlined, so check it, and then it will be ready. I hope it's not much time to wait, actually. So for sure it should be this year, 2021.
I just saw a comment that I want to speak to, like something about the manual. So I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the very long thread in the forums on the Junkers. I read every single thing, and it was super positive, and I love it. Thank you that you enjoy it as much as we do. Like super great. And then people said, "Hey, how about manuals?" And it's something. Honestly, we have the checklist system. We think the checklist system's good. I think core simmers like the checklist system, but would like the traditional manual. So we're currently working on a solution. I'll tell you this way. Hans just hooked me up with someone that Hans has worked with in the past. That is a person that knows a lot about planes and loves writing manuals, and he is interested in.
这是关于飞行手册的问题。虽然游戏内有一个检查单的那个功能，但是很多人还是喜欢真正的飞行手册。
Don't know exactly when, but it's going to come. And with
然后又有个说是会做，但是目前没什么计划。
We heard you.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Sure, the community is as well. So thank you. Anything else you'd like to share, Andre, before we move on to our Q&A?
Well, actually,
yeah.
Maybe it sees some questions about the aircraft in the chat.
Oh, sure. Did you see a question?
Well, I just want to add that it will be not only wheeled version, so it will be on several gears, skis and floats, and several panels actually. This one old.
这个 AN2 和荣5.2一样，是会有多个机舱的版本以及起落架版本。
So that's it. Most to it for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andre, for coming
Thank
onto
you for
the show
inviting me.
today. We appreciate it, and we're very excited for the Antonov. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you, I hope.
Bye, Andre.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Andre. Bye.
All right, we will now move on to our final Q&A. I know we've had 2 already, but there's definitely plenty more questions coming your way. We have about 15 minutes, so we'll see if we can
还有
keep
最
our
后
answers
最后
shorter.
10几分钟的一个公开
Do our
Q&A 环节
best. So feel free in the chat to ask questions. I also have questions here already pre-selected. I'll go ahead and start with the first one. Seb, can you give us an update on the status of the issue where avionics screen goes black?
哦，航电黑屏的这个问题。
Spelled it wrong.
Yeah, so actually I'm not going to say more than what has been. I think there's been a post actually on this because I talked to support. What we found is that there was not just a bug, but 3 or maybe 4. The one is Xbox specific, and I think it's related to some memory leaks. Basically, when the system runs out of memory, it shuts down.
这个黑屏不是单一的原因，会有很多个原因。其中第一条是 Xbox 上 ，Xbox 上可能会有一个内存泄漏的问题。然后当内存泄漏发生的时候，他们会首先回收航电的那部分代码的内存，就造成这个问题。
There was also an issue on some planes, totally unrelated, and probably on any platform, which is basically that on some planes, when you press the starter button, it doesn't automatically turn off. You have to turn it off. So it's probably a bug. So we're going to fix this so that it automatically goes off. But basically, what happens is that then the starter stays on, and it just drains the battery. And then when the battery of the plane is
这个是我之前提到过，就是有可能是
there was a last issue. I think we called it something.
有些飞机的自动启动流程上是没开充电的。
And so we are
这个他
looking at all 3.
们会反复排查所有的飞机，然后把这个问题解决掉。
There's already 3, maybe something else, because we already fixed black screen issues in the past. And when you fix something like this, you say, yeah, we fixed the black screen issue, and then people still have it, and then oh, what's going on? So there's 3 things we found, and we're looking at all 3, and hope that's going to be it.
其实总体来说就是充电的模拟是存在的，黑屏的除了 Xbox 内存溢出之外，黑屏的原因只有可能是没充上电。 但没充上电的原因有可能有多种啊，就这个问题上。
Top question from the forums: that will we ever get cirrus clouds or maybe other type of cloud formations in the sim?
Yeah, I can take this. So
这
cirrus
是
clouds is
云
really the
的
clouds at high altitude. And that
说云的
can
问
take
题。
any form of shape. So currently you can, if you select the preset high altitude clouds, you already get cirrus clouds. You can set your own layer of cirrus clouds. You can play around with how they are scattered, how the coverage looks. It's but we don't currently. I mean, there's an infinity of number of shapes of clouds, right? So I think currently some of the cirrus cloud skies photos you can find on the internet, or when you look outside, you can do in the sim, and some others you can't. When they're super stretchy or like when there's basically strong winds
这是问能不能通过天气菜单里来模拟出想要的云层形状来。我现在说是不能。
You can get some layers from, I think they call it what, cirrocumulus to like a little bit stretched cirrus, but not too much, right? All you need to do is have a thin layer and play around with the scattering. And in the future, our plans are obviously to improve everything clouds and sky. And so at some point, we're going to introduce more options to make them more serious.
目前只能说是未来会在那个天气菜单里加入更多的选项，能让你更每一个云层都可以调更多东西。
Custom weather, or would it ever be implemented with live weather? So that question.
So we are working exactly on this subject right now. It's what I was talking about. The way we interpret the data we receive from Meteo Blue, we try to be as close as possible to real life.
Yeah.
And typically, the way we interpret the data we receive has been improved in order to reflect better the actual shape and width of the cloud. So. Still, it will still be in the context of what Seb just said, but we know that we have found some improvement in this. So hopefully you will see some difference, not only regarding the cirrus clouds, but on any layers of the atmosphere. We have improved slightly the how we represent the clouds depending on the data we receive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. All right. So there is a shine shimmering on buildings and trees. So wondering what you've found out about this issue and anything you can talk about.
So we found one issue was
各位可能会发现，就是很多大城市那个地景
there may be
有时会
others,
乱
right?
闪，
One
那个
issue we
那
found
个问
is
题。
that basically the autogen buildings have sometimes they have little details on the rooftops, like a small air conditioner or a little mesh of stuff, and these are displayed extremely far at a way too high LOD. So I think first of all it costs on performance and memory because we are
首先一点是很多自动生成的建筑上会有小东西，比如说空调，但是现在这些东西的渲染距离太远了。
That when our temporal anti-aliasing launches,
然后第二个就是关于这个乱闪的一个问题。这个呢，其实如果各位对这个电脑这个3D 画面有研究的话，其实就能猜到的，就是抗锯齿的这个问题。
And then you average it, and it gives you your pixel, right?
这个问题其实无解。
When the mesh is so big and so
DLSS 是可能解决，但是目前暂时没有这个计划。
That you basically no ray ever touches the same thing, and every time you render this, you get something different because the mesh is so over detailed at that distance. You get that shimmer, right? You get so if you increase the render scale, it tends to reduce a little bit, but basically that's the lower the resolution and the lower the render scale, the more you see it, but it's always
这就是讲这个问题，其实就是我刚才说的这
there may be something a little bit
这个建筑物乱闪这个问题，就是3D 渲染的一个基础的一个问题，就是建筑物上的一些细节够多的话，抗锯齿流上会产生这个问题，基本上无解。说实话。
Basically adjusting the detail of these little meshes which are on the rooftops.
只能说是拉分辨率，分辨率越高，这个问题越不明显。
That's going to be fixing one issue. So we're looking at it. It depends really on the situation, right? In some cases, I barely saw it. I had to really push down the render scale, I think, to 30 and play in 1080p to really see it flashing. Then it's obviously visible, but it's not something which is extremely visible there. That's why it's not as easy to locate. But this cause we found, and we'll look at it.
Great. Cool, thank you. Someone from chat is asking about Xbox liveries, real liveries on Xbox, and if we plan on adding more in the future.
Yep.
Yes.
Xbox 平台上的涂装以后会有吗？会有。
Okay, next question we have: will terrain shifting and morphing be investigated or fixed?
哦，地形就是。 大家非常敏感的发现，就是很多时候地形会突然间变形状这个问题。
Yesterday, right, with the release of SimUpdate 5. So one thing to understand is what Georg said earlier. It's all very dependent on data and location.
但这个问题，熟悉3D 渲染的朋友应该也知道什么问题。基本是两个问题，一个是数据。
Sometimes what happens is that you get
这个地区的数据如果够精细的话，这个问题基本是不能发生。 第二问题是 IOD， 这就是现代3D 画面怎么渲染的问题。这 IOD 这个问题也真说实话无解，除非上虚幻5的那个 Nano， 但这块他们做不做吧？
Sometimes it can be happening at the edge of a cliff or something. Sometimes the vertex is at the top, and then you go further away, and then boom, it goes down. And so it really looks like a cut going up and down. So by moving the detail further away, that has been improved a little bit. And I've seen the first videos of people looking before and after SimUpdate 6. It's a little improvement. It's less visible now. And basically while
这个是能优化的，但是真正解决是无解。这个跟刚才建筑物乱闪那个问题一样，都是现在3D 画面如何渲染的这个根本性的一个问题。
Currently, I think they just switch. And temporal compositing smoothes it out over 16 frames or something, but it's pretty abrupt. We could smooth this out over, I don't know, half a kilometer or whatever, so that it becomes completely invisible. That's something which is a very much longer development that we could look at as well. But I think also data
就
improvements.
是刚才说，就是优化空间是很大，
is going to
是
improve.
他们
But
会
it
优
can-
化，但
so
是
there's something
解
where some
决
people
是
say, I don't see it,
不现实
and someone
这个
else
意
can
思。
say I don't see it. It's just because the data in the world, there's just so much of it, and it can be different, and it can be completely pop free and super sharp in one area. and
除非
then
他
it can
们
be
改
pops in
引擎，
another
把那
area.
个虚幻五类似
I mean,
LANet
our
这个
goal
技
is
术
to
引
have
进
the
来，
best DEM
那也能直接解
representation
决
of
这
the
个问
planet
题。
you can get. Like that is fundamentally what we're doing. It's not a specifically great science. You know, there's lots of, sometimes you see spikes that comes out of the raw data. So we're working with the Bing team quite a bit on making this. We're actually now setting
至
up
于
a
虚幻
new
五拿来
team.
的是啥，
I
这
think
里
it's
就
8
不说了。
people
这个
that do nothing other than
懂
getting
3D 的
new
朋友应该都
DEM
懂，不
data,
懂的
new
话
aerial
一时半会儿
data,
说不清
making sure that it
这
looks
个
great
主要
on
是
the
这个问
city.
题。
And then as Seb said, it's
重复一
most
下，就是这个
vulnerable at cliffs. Like
地
you see
形
it
突
very
然
much
变
at
形以
things
及
like
刚才那个建筑物乱闪，
Moldova.
其实是一个问题，
And
都是
that,
现代
in order to
3D
get
画面
that
怎么渲染的问
really
题。
awesome,
总
you
的来
need to
说
be
呢，
like
就
at
是
a
如果
half
这个
meter
地区
depth.
的数据
Now,
足够
England
精
just
细，
published
这个
a
问题
new
是几乎
dam,
不
which
存
is
在的。
great. We're looking at it right now.
就是这个
But
现象是
for-
存在，
for
但是你
Dover,
感觉
for
不到
example,。we modeled Dover. We
是
literally
这些问题
dived
你
and
感觉到
modeled the
主要
cliffs of
一是
Dover
这个
to
地
make
区的
sure
数
that
据
that
不精
actually
细，
looks the part.
二是现在
It's-
引擎确实在
It's
这方
hard
面
to
优
visit
化做的
across
不
the
是特别
entire
好，
planet,
你能
but
直接
we
看出
are
来，
we are
有这个问题
paying
在里面。
quite a bit of attention whenever there's a
就是
bug.
他们可以做到
we-
你
we're
看不
trying
出
to
来，
fix it
但
right
是
away.
这个现象
But the-
存在，
the-
只
the
不过你
ultimate
感觉不
goal
到
is
而已。他们可以做到
probably
这
a
个结果
blend.，maybe
但这个
Asobo
问题
can
是
do
永远存在
some,
的，
you know,
是
this
这样。
morphing tech where you basically just go over time and spread the popping out. But we need to get better data across the planet. That's it. It's not going to be all tomorrow. That's why we do world updates so we can actually focus on something. But we are working on it.
Well, this question is related from the forums. Is why do we have outdated Bing maps?
毕竟地图过
Yeah,
太
it's
老了。
interesting. The question is interesting. So it depends what you mean with Bing maps. There's three things. There's tin cities or photogrammetry cities. There's aerials, and then there's height field or DEM data, DTM data. So on the 3D cities, we are actually congruent with what they have. That might not always be so. As a matter of fact, some of the cities that we got for Flight Simulator, like for example, so for Flight Simulator we got things like Paris and Vienna, and sometimes I do my best to get the rights to make that also available for Bing. In some cases, the providers don't want to do that.
比如
I
像
then begrudgingly
就
optimize
并不是
and
所有的
say,
数据
okay,
都
then
来
it's
自于
flights
并
only,
地图，
which I don't
比如像
really
巴
love,
黎和
but,
维也纳的
this is what it is. So there are
航
some
拍
cities that we have that
是
are
别的第三方的
just on
数据
Flight Sim，and
他
not
们
on Bing.
是Asobo 甚至是想把这个数据直接套灌给 Bing 地图的。
So there's that. Then there will be a time when Bing will have some cities that we don't have yet in Flight Sim, and that has something to do with that work has to be done to those cities to work in Flight Sim. Like they have to be tree removal, we have to do a water mask, there's color corrections and some other things. And sometimes photogrammetry is great it's great for a bunch of things, but it doesn't really hold up super well for unique looking buildings like a tower or like an awesome church. So we oftentimes hand model those. And then in Flight Sim, what you get is a blend between hand modeled things and photogrammetry. So that's photogrammetry. On the DEM side, we are still the same. I would
就
say
是说，
Bing
为什么
probably
不
doesn't
直
care
接
about
拿
that
必应
nearly as
的
much as
必
we
应
do,
的
which is why most
航拍
which is
测
why
绘
we're
直接
building
在
this
用
new。team now on the Flight
提
Sim
到很
side.
多航拍测绘精度不是特别
Because
高，
the
所以你看现在
Bing
城市里
maps
这些
isn't
现在游戏里那些航拍测绘
landing on the，
即便
height
是
field,
航拍
right?
测
We
绘
do
的城
that,
市也有
they
很多的
don't.
模
So
型是人
they
工打
actually,
造
but
的。
they benefit from
有
us
这个问题
quite
在
a
里
bit,
面。
and it's a really good collaboration between the teams. And where I would say Bing is most interested is the aerial maps, and that's what they do completely on their own, and we benefit from that. We again have some cleanup to do. We run tree detection and
这
things
是
like
在
that.
总结，
Right?
就
So
是说
Bing maps is 2D, right? Like 2.5D.
必应地
right?
图
So
那
height
边
field
他们
is
更多的
detection on
关
it.
心
We
的
have
是
3D buildings and 3D trees. So we have
航拍
we
的
have
结
work
果
to。do, right? It's not automated.
所以从关注点上，他们
But
的
there can be
原始数
slight
据
differences, but
其实
fundamentally we
不是
try to stay as
100%
close together as we can.
契合
Gotcha.
飞行模拟的这个需求。
Long answer, sorry.
Yes, maybe possibly the last question here. We covered it a little bit, but will AI and live traffic be further developed by Asobo, or
这个
will other devs be helping out with it?
这是实时交通数据的问题。
You guys want to say something about this?
但现在实时交通数据是加密的，其他第三方是操作不了的。
So live traffic, one interesting thing is that live traffic goes through a similar system than multiplayer planes. Basically for a client, it's just another plane. So you will benefit from smoother trajectories just from the work done on Reno. And there's the data sources, and also I know that they're working on improving basically sometimes a lot of data is missing, and we need to augment the data to be able to display the plane. Sometimes altitude is missing, sometimes destination is missing, sometimes they are like, sometimes there's a piece of trajectory missing. That's for live traffic. AI, I don't think we're doing much there. I haven't heard of any big improvements. We're more focusing on live traffic than AI. And Jörg, maybe you want to talk about planes themselves, the meshes.
Well, so I think we actually have some. So we have Flight Aware, right? They have a bunch of live data, and we are currently not displaying.
优信的现在实时交通数据用的是 Flight Aware
the team is looking into
的数据。
Then we talked about the actual meshes, which we are slowly but surely building our library of all the what we call passive planes, basically traffic planes. The thing where we need to be careful of is that we don't screw our frame rate, right? So there's a bunch of extra data coming in. Just imagine a big international airport and how many different planes are actually there. So it needs to be carefully done. So just know that we're on it. It's just like, so models are being made, livery contracts are being signed with a bunch of the airplane airlines. But it'll just take time, right? We don't want to do anything that you guys come back like, well, the airport runs at 20 frames a second now. What the hell did you do? So we just need to be organized about it. But we're working on it.
Great, thank you so much.
I wanted to answer like a few questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So first off, because somebody said something that's near and dear to my heart, Offenbach. Yes. Yeah, I just want to say it. I'm from Frankfurt, right? So Offenbach it overlapped. They're right next to each other with Frankfurt, and we have to figure out how to do two. It's very unusual that we have two photogrammetry cities that intersect. So this is on the Bing side right now, but it bothers the living hell out of me. Trust me, my mom is from there. So it's like, yeah. And then why are we not using Google Maps? Well, that's a different company. So I think in general, I would say the Bing team, we are already, I believe, incredibly lucky that we can.
我直接就是很直白，俩公司，你想啥？
We get all the stuff that the Bing team is doing for free, and that is really, there's only two companies in the world that can do anything like this. Period, in my opinion. And then the Bing team has just acquired a bunch of new data that will it has to be processed. It takes actually a long time to process these cities. But I've seen the city list, and we will benefit from that in future world updates quite a bit. And those will be all 2019 to 2022 vintage. So pretty damn new. But you're right, some of the cities we had at launch were from like 2013. So it's now, it's 8 years ago. But there's a lot of new cities coming. But so just be patient, just to know, like, you have to basically process the city, then it has to be cleaned up because there are some, there's some cranes that look terrible, right? So you need to actually, there's a team that does this. They can do 200 square kilometers a week. I'm trying to increase that capacity. And some of these cities are huge. When you look at these cities with all the suburbs, oh my Lord, it's like, 1,000 square kilometers for one big city. So it just takes time, right? So we're staffing up that team. As I said, there are 4 right now. We're hiring another 8 just to get faster on the processing of it.
专门的一个团队在处理城市的航拍数据，现在有8个人。
No.
Okay. Got it. I know a lot of people are asking. There have been some online functionality issues as far as the service for the past day, specifically affecting live traffic, so it still may be impacted. And we have a banner up in our forums. We'll update that banner whenever we can, as far as when it'll return to normal. So thank you so much. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say before we close out this Q&A?
结束了。
Glad everybody's liking Sim Update 6. We're obviously in the forums. We look at Zendesk, as we said. So thank you. If you find anything that's not working, let us know. We'll jump on it. And then, November is going to be cool, right? So I think it didn't quite come through. It's actually essentially a Sim Update 7 that comes out in November with the Game of the Year edition. And then there's Reno, which is super fun when we play it. So can't wait to see you in the skies racing, Need for Speed and all that stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everyone in chat. Thank you the community. We are excited to come back in a month from now to have another Q&A. But until then, we'll see you around in the forums and on Discord and all our social spaces. So I hope everyone has
下一期的官方 Q&A 是1个月之后。
Thank you, everyone.
再见。今天这期录播我会直接把整个录播传上来，然后周末的时候，应该周六或周日吧，我把这些信息再总结一下，做个专门的视频。新公布的新东西还是不少的，我先看一眼啊。主要你像里诺竞赛里一些细节是今天刚说的，比如说这个不止跟竞赛有关系，像那个低空飞行的时候那些尘土特效那都是新的。然后 G 力的这个黑屏的问题也是新的。然后对中文版是确认会在1月份，但也不能说官方确认，只是 Yogurt 脑子里想了一下，他记得有这么个计划是在1月份，到时1月份没有的时候就骂他就行了。剩下的就是比如像AT Simulations 这个新的合作，然后去做 AN2 这个飞机，这是一个新的。然后详解了一下航电黑屏的问题，然后还有啥？对，还有这些里诺竞赛的一些很详细的细节了，比如竞赛的时候的那些 UI， 购买方式，比如你买了20的那个包是能升到60的，实际上是所有的东西都可以单独买，包括每一架飞机都可以单独买，但是每一架飞机都是$10。所以你算一下，你就会发现买合集包更便宜。剩下的就我回来再总结一下，我大概周六或周日会做一个简短的总结视频。这些东西能拿出来说的也不是特别多，但是确实有新东西需要说一下。好了，刚才1个半小时的这个录像我会直接传上来，完整的录像会直接传。好，各位晚安啊！下期的官方直播是1个月之后，也不知道是哪天了，我估计会在11月18号、25号之类的，到时候再看临时通知吧。好，各位再见。